Robocop is one of the greatest sci-fi action films ever made, and at the same time my personal favorite. So sooner or later, a video about it was bound to appear on this channel. It tells the story of a police officer named Murphy, who was brutally murdered while patrolling the streets of Detroit, only to be resurrected as a cyborg, given a chance to seek revenge. In this video I want to focus not on this well-known story, but rather on what lies beneath it. This approach will provide the deepest understanding of the film and the ideas embedded in it by the director. Enjoy the video. To start, we need to take just a few minutes for a historical overview. After all, Robocop is a film of its time, packed with satire and criticism of American politics in the 1980s. The presidencies of Ronald Reagan in the US and Margaret Thatcher in the UK marked the era of so-called neoliberalism, a flourishing market economy, widespread privatization of the public sector, globalization, and the creation of ideal conditions for private sector growth. Tax cuts and reduced government oversight of businesses ultimately led to economic growth in the US. However, government revenues significantly declined, further impacted by increased military spending. As a result, the state had to borrow more and more. All of these political trends are reflected in Robocop, but in an exaggerated form. We see a near-future version of Detroit, a symbol of neoliberal policies. Liberalism has dominated society for decades. Capitalism has gone completely off the rails. Corporations are growing as if on steroids, while the social sphere teeters on the brink of collapse. Education is in decline. Crime and militarization of society have reached extreme levels. Police officers patrol city streets as if they are going to war. At the same time, there is an astonishing tolerance for violence. People talk about it on TV with a smile. The nuclear hysteria of the Cold War is long gone, and even that has now been monetized. In this world, neoliberal ideas are no longer just politics or even philosophy. They have become a way of thinking. This society lives for financial gain, and all of its actions, in one way or another, are dictated by it. We're introduced to Detroit's largest corporation, OCP, Omni Consumer Products. The word omni translates from Latin as everything. OCP produces literally everything, spanning a vast range of industries in energy, medicine, information technology, military sectors, and more. And this list will only continue to grow. In recent years, the corporation have achieved colossal success in conquering new markets.
And you'll see that we have gambled in markets traditionally regarded as non-profit. Hospitals, prisons, space exploration. I say good business is where you find it.
The search for new ways to generate profit as well as methods to monetize our very lives is a hallmark of neoliberal policy. OCP managed to grow to an unprecedented scale thanks to business-friendly conditions.
Although shifts in the tax structure have created an economy ideal for corporate growth, community services, in this case law enforcement, have suffered. I think it's time we gave something back.
Without a doubt, Detroit's police debt will be repaid. However, not in the form of salary increases for officers or improved working conditions. OCP would never take a path that doesn't guarantee a return on its investments. In this world, there are no laws or government institutions such as antitrust committees that could halt OCP's expansion. The privatization of the public sector is in a full swing, and its scale is evident in the fact that even the country's Department of Defense is just one step away from becoming a subsidiary of OCP.
You got access to military weaponry?
We practically are the military.
And the pinnacle of the company's policy, the embodiment of its philosophy and ambitions, is the Delta City project. We are introduced to the elderly head of OCP. This man, whose name isn't even mentioned in the credits, wants to build a massive metropolis in place of the old, decaying Detroit. 2 million jobs, a city free from crime, corruption, and even government influence. Law enforcement, education, the media, everything here will be under OCP's control. The national government will have no leverage in this city. It will even lose its monopoly on the use of force. Of course, all of this is presented under the guise of noble intentions. The old man wants the best for the city where he was born and raised.
In 6 months, we begin construction of Delta City.
The only thing standing in the way of this dream is crime, which creates an unfavorable business environment. This is the problem, and it must be solved urgently. The privatization of the police is already well underway, but it's clearly not enough. The company's vice president, Dick, takes the floor. He introduces the next generation law enforcer, ED-209, a machine that needs neither food nor sleep and is ready to deliver justice to the streets 24/7. But during this demonstration, tragedy strikes. ED opens fire on the employee after failing to detect the sound of the weapon dropping. It keeps shooting at him with its twin heavy-caliber cannons until the support staff manages to shut it down. Here it's important to note how the corporation's members react to the incident. For Dick, it's nothing more than a glitch, an accident.
I'm sure it's only a glitch, a temporary setback.
You call this a glitch?
For the old man, it's a potential loss of millions of dollars, which I'm sure is a mere trifle to him. And for the younger, more ambitious employee, Morton, it's an opportunity to prove himself by offering his own version of the product. All of these people think solely in financial terms. Human life holds no value for them. One of Dick's colleagues proposes his own concept for a robotic police officer, which differs from the previous prototype in one seemingly insignificant way. If mass production ED-209 would simply make the most of Detroit's police force unemployed, then Morton's idea suggests that these officers must be eliminated. As we later learn, the project requires a sufficient number of half-dead cops to function. Without them, it's simply not viable. Morton understands this and has already started searching for candidates in advance.
Restructured the police department and placed prime candidates according to risk factor. I'm confident that we can go to prototype within 90 days.
The construction of Delta City will begin in just 6 months, and crime must be eradicated before this ambitious project starts. This is clearly an impossible task for a single prototype, and mass deployment would create an enormous demand for human corpses. From the very beginning of the film, we are made to understand that Delta City will be built on blood. At this point, it's worth saying a few words about Clarence Boddicker and his gang. The director draws numerous parallels between the corporate world and the criminal underworld. Market-driven thinking is a trait shared by all residents of Detroit, including Boddicker. For instance, he steals money to invest in the drug trade.
We steal money to buy coke, then sell the coke to make even more money. Capital investment, man.
Just like OCP, he expands his markets and opens new ones. Here, business and crime are inseparable. We see a murderer and rapist in an office, while a corporate clerk indulges in cocaine and prostitutes at a country house just like a drug lord. Boddicker and his gang are an extension of OCP, handling the markets that the corporation cannot openly control. They even share the same motto.
Good business is where you find it.
I say good business is where you find it.
Boddicker was hired by Dick to kill police officers and clear the markets for his product.
I work for Dick Jones! Dick Jones!
However, it's important to understand that Morton is essential doing the same thing, creating conditions where the deaths of police officers become inevitable. Budget cuts, staff shortages, selecting candidates who meet specific criteria, incompetent management of the precinct where the Robocop program was implemented. This is where our main character Murphy was transferred. He was a prime candidate for the future of law enforcement, a doomed man unaware that his name would soon be removed from his locker and that his funeral expenses would be covered by his fellow officers. It didn't take long. His first patrol, a chase after robbers, a denied request for backup due to budget cuts and disorganization with the police force, a shutout and pursuit to the criminal's hideout, a second request for assistance, denied again. The result, arguably the most brutal protagonist death in cinematic history. That evening, Patrol Officer Murphy, loving father and family man, died, and sometime later, OCP's new police force gave birth to its first child. Before we continue, let's pause and ask ourselves a few questions to fully grasp what OCP did to Murphy. First question: why does OCP need police officers' bodies in the first place? After all, if assembling a cyborg only requires a human brain and other organs, why not source them from, say, medical clinics? That would be a much simpler and more logical way to obtain human tissue. But no, OCP specifically needed cops, and here's why. Listen carefully to how Morton presents his product to the company executives.
We get the best of both worlds. The fastest reflexes modern technology has to offer, onboard computer-assisted memory, and a lifetime of on-the-street law enforcement programming. It is my great pleasure to present to you Robocop.
Robocop is a fusion of man and machine. Technology enhances human abilities, improving accuracy, strength, memory, and so on. But OCP also took something valuable from the human world. All of the Murphy's experience as a police officer, which notably Morton refers to as a program. Not all of Murphy's memory was erased, only his individuality. However, all of his experience as a cop remained completely intact. The theory and practice he had gained on the streets of Detroit, various procedures, habits, and way of thinking were all preserved. The three primary directives: serve the public trust, uphold the law, and protect the innocent, weren't entirely OCP's programming. They were already in Murphy's head. Morton talks about him as if he had been in some way a robot even before his transformation. Every cop follows roughly the same program, and that's what OCP valued most. As for their individuality, that was seen as unnecessary baggage and was discarded. It's no surprise then that Robocop became excessively violent and completely incapable of normal human interaction. The only thing he could do was mechanically recite one of his many directives.
Madam, you have suffered an emotional shock. I will notify a rape crisis center.
Now it's easy to see where OCP made a miscalculation. We know that Robocop retained at least three things from his past life. Memories of his own death, his gun-spinning habit, which was tied to memories of his son, and his phrase,
"Dead or alive, you are coming with me."
All of these are both part of Murphy's police career and his personal history. It's precisely this overlap that prevented the last remnants to his humanity from being erased. Now for another crucial question. Morton mentioned that not just any cop was suitable for the project, only those who has been specifically selected by OCP. We know that Murphy was chosen as a candidate and transferred to a police precinct controlled by the corporation. But what made him stand out from the hundreds of other officers? Was he a good cop? Well, he was certainly dedicated to his job. After all, he dared to enter a criminal hideout without backup.
You a good cop? Hot shot?
But OCP's definition of a good cop is not the same as ours. After all, the company is interested in ensuring that its future product does not rebel against them. Let's recall this scene where Robocop returns to the police station to search for information about his killers. Besides yet another demonstration of police impotence, there is an interesting detail hidden here. We see the protagonist profile, which contains information about him receiving an award for good conduct bravery. This is exactly what OCP wants from its police officers: loyalty, obedience to orders, and willingness to risk their lives to carry them out. A program and unwavering commitment to it. The sad truth is that Murphy was already partially a robot from the very beginning of this film, a compliant mechanism of the system, dutifully following the instructions implanted in him. Robocop is in a way a metaphor for the privatization of Detroit's law enforcement system. Everything that happens to him extends to the entire city police force without exception. Through Murphy's example, the film clearly demonstrates why police privatization is outright terrible idea. The interests of private business and those of ordinary citizens will inevitably conflict. Businessmen who are primarily driven by financial gain see the ideal police officer as someone like E.D., predictable, incapable of striking, and ready to selflessly protect the interests of their masters. For us, however, a police officer is first and foremost a human being. OCP treats the police officer in the same way it treated Murphy, by completely amputating the human factor, maximizing automation, and ensuring total loyalty. That is their number one criterion. The first fruits of this approach in Robocop are seen in the scene where Murphy is gunned down by Detroit's SWAT team. Only a handful of them are capable of disobeying a direct order from their superiors and seeing something human in Robocop.
Prepare to fire!
Hey, wait a second!
Get a cop, for God's sake!
Hey, stop, you can't do that!
We have orders to destroy it!
Unfortunately, the majority of the squad consist of faceless robots, their identities now hidden behind masks. Under the company's control, they have been turned into a semblance of AD-209, blindly executing the directives programmed into them. By the way, where were all these forces when Murphy and Lewis twice requested backup? OCP's police force fully serves only the interests of those who pay their salaries. The fourth directive is also embedded in their brains. They destroy Robocop because the human inside him wakes up, and unlike them, he dares to defy the program. After Murphy's death, OCP gained fully control over his body. When the scientist reported to Morton that they had managed to save the arm, he immediately ordered it to be amputated. Another amusing parallels between the actions of criminals and private business. Everything human must be destroyed. There can be no compromise, only complete body prostetization. Individuality is an obstacle. Its factor is unpredictable and hard to control. Whatever little remained of his human form is hidden under a helmet with the label OCP Police, not Detroit Police, mind you. Robocop is no longer the protector of the city's citizen. Before our eyes, we witness the next crucial step in the neoliberal expansion of a powerful corporation, the privatization of a human being. Not only his body, but also the content of Murphy's head have just become private property. The consumer has been turned into a product.
He doesn't have a name, he's got a program. He's product.
The robot police officer is entirely and completely the property of the corporation, their soldier, their creation. Notice how the scene of protagonist's awakening, or rather his activation in the new form, are filmed. A wide-angle lens, the camera directed from below upwards. He appears like a child who has just opened his eyes, observing his parents playing nearby. They're cooing at him and congratulating him on the occasion.
This is for you.
We see his first steps with the applause of the jubilant crowd of relatives. One of his parents is beside himself with joy, anticipating what his creation will be capable of and how much money it will bring in. The newborn eats, as expected, special nutrition.
Tastes like baby food.
When reading reviews of the film, one may encounter the following criticism. Robocop's actions throughout the film are too brutal and often unjustified. Beating up criminals, throwing them out of the window instead of arresting them, and the brutal shootings are hard to consider as the work of a servant of the law. Such words only indicate that the essence of what is happening has been missed. And if you understand the motives and goals of the OCP corporation, you will immediately realize that Robocop in this film is a bad guy.
You're gonna be a bad motherfucker.
Why would this guy, whose hands are stained with the blood of police officers, suddenly care about justice? On the contrary, he intends to bend the law to his will and physically eliminate crime as quickly as possible. He wants to cut out this cancerous tumor, not heal it.
All Detroit has a cancer. The cancer is crime.
Robocop is a tool of OCP, a butcher created for the same tasks as the ED-209, which they planned to release on the streets despite its obvious flaws. Murphy was transformed from a police officer into a lyncher, whose goal is to restore order in the city through violence and establish new standards of law enforcement for the future police of Delta City. Real police reforms are long, difficult, and require huge financial investments, which are unlikely to ever be repaid. Therefore, OCP takes the much easier road, and we as viewers of the film often fully support them in this. But how else could we react, seeing a hole like Detroit and what criminals have done to the main character? We want someone like Robocop to emerge, capable of giving them back what they deserve. The director plays along with us, creating a hero who embodies justice, a composite figure from American pop culture, a cowboy, a knight in shining armor, and a comic book superhero like Iron Man. Murphy wanted to be a role model for his son, the cool guy from TV and magazines, and he succeeded. Now he's a terror to the criminal world.
Wow. Can you do that, Dad?
But there are small nuance, a kind of trap, the essence of which you will understand only at the very end of this film. Not a single action of Robocop has anything to do with the law. Remember those words from the ID robot during the presentation.
Please put down your weapon. You have 20 seconds to comply.
Now ask yourself, who gave him the right to speak on behalf of the law? After all, this is a secret prototype that has no official authority to use force. He acts on behalf of the corporation and exclusively in its interests. By the end of the film, this becomes abundantly clear. The glitchy robot will be spinning in the parking lot near the OCP building, ready to shoot anyone who dares to park in the wrong spot.
You are illegally parked on private property. You have 20 seconds to move your vehicle.
All these police innovations and loud words are just a facade to legitimize the use of force against those who have violated the corporation's private property. Certainly, Robocop has 3 police directives, but as we will see repeatedly throughout the film, he has no trouble bypassing them, given their vague interpretations. This cannot be said about the 4th secret directive. It directly forbids acting against members of the corporation.
You're our product. And we can't very well have our products turning against us, can we?
The methods of promoting the new order are clearly visible in the hostage rescue scene at the city hall. A hostage taker is in the building, armed, and has already executed someone. The guy is serious and represents the highest danger. The police decide to wait and negotiate. By the way, the operation is commanded by the same man who will later be sent to destroy Robocop, and at this point he clearly no longer cares about the hostages. His goal is to rescue the mayor.
Okay, Miller, don't hurt the mayor. We'll give you whatever you want.
Robocop drives up to the building, noticeably tearing through the caution tape. All these formalities mean nothing to him. He then enters the building without assessing the situation or consulting with his colleagues. No hesitation or delays. He's not here to save hostages. Using a thermal imager, Robocop neutralizes the armed man, then drops him from the second floor onto the asphalt. This was clearly excessive and probably cost the guy his life. The first people to approach the terrorist body are not the police but reporters, and we are instantly transported to a news studio. Watching a report from this scene, the viewers witnessed the epic flight of the criminal from the window. They were also informatively and with a smile told that a robotic police officer is now operating in this city, someone who's not willing to cuddle the criminal world. But there's no need to worry, because this applies only to the bad guys. Just look, even the children aren't afraid of him. Of course, Robocop didn't end up in the school to neutralize yet another villain. This is part of the advertising campaign to promote the new product of OCP. The television here is used solely for advertising the company's products and promoting its policies. It's impossible to separate the news reports from advertisements. The media is apparently completely controlled by OCP. A quick analysis of a couple of news segments from Media Break reveals it. While the anchor speaks on behalf of the police, we see the Detroit Police Department logo on the screen, but when OCP is mentioned, we are shown a representative of the company giving what seems to be wise speeches. OCP has a face, while the police in the news are faceless. Another example, here's an objective survey about police strikes, which, as we know, are not in OCP's best interests. The first citizen is against the strikes. He is quite reasonable and is a private property owner, which adds to his status in society. The second, an unemployed Jewish man who seems to be mentally impaired, supports the freedom of the police to strike. It's not hard to predict which side the audience will sympathize with. Detroit's media are tools for advertising and justifying OCP's aggressive neoliberal policies. Day in and day out, idiotic TV shows with endlessly repeated jokes that everyone in the film laughs at are aired. This leads to thoughts of complete moral degradation and the decline of the educational system. The closure of bookstores and the complete disregard for the person with a textbook in hand are clear signs of this. But let's return to Robocop. The first OCP prototype is gradually starting to lose control. During a shutdown, the cyborg dreams of the murder of Officer Murphy, which sets off a chain of events that will eventually lead Robocop to OCP's vice president. As the film progresses, Murphy begins to recover his memories, his voice loses its metallic accent, and his face reappears beneath the helmet. He relearns how to express emotions and even feel pain. His partner, Lewis, a compassionate and empathetic cop with a clear character and individuality, helps him focus on what matters and ultimately grow up.
I brought you some food.
Oh, thank you. I'm not hungry.
The film concluded with Murphy's brief yet powerful utterance of his own name, following a slight smile.
Nice shooting, son. What's your name?
Murphy.
It's It's a simple, inspiring ending, yet the more you think about it, the less you believe in a truly happy resolution. Yes, Murphy got his revenge, but will he ever escape the influence of the OCP program? He was effectively allowed to kill Dick Jones. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, the true ending of the story becomes clearer. Here, the intriguing pictures that emerge. An elderly man who has purposely been stripped of a name decided late in life to change the world for the better. He wants to repay the city where he was born and raised, and build his corporate utopia called Delta City, a megacity with millions of citizens under his total control. The image of this kindly old man is deceiving. He's a predator, used to getting what he wants and willing to pay for his dream with the blood of his fellow citizens. For him, Delta City is the last chance to improve the city. As the billboards around the city say, the future has a silver lining. The old man has all the tools at his disposal: control over the armed force, a loyal army and police, control over the media, education, goods, services, and even the underground business. Absolute power in the hand of one person, with unlimited influence over every sphere of life in Detroit. OCP, a private company, effectively replaces the state, transforming it into a totalitarian, militarized entity, achieved through the use of purely market mechanisms. But totalitarianism is just the tip of the iceberg. As we know, Robocop is a result of privatization and business optimization. OCP's complete control over Murphy's individuality turned him into a company product. As soon as he lost his self, he became a slave. Another police officer followed in his footsteps. They all, like Murphy before his transformation, wore the Detroit police badge on their shoulders, if it were a brand logo. Remember Emil, who emerged from police custody? He proudly wore a barcode on his chest and showed it off to his friends. He too is a product, just like Murphy.
How's the Gray Bar Hotel?
Not bad, they let me keep the shirt.
Their personalities were adjusted using structures privatized by OCP, the police, prisons, the media, and so on. Soon, every resident of Delta City will become a product of OCP, a neutral mechanical appendage to the company. And just like with Murphy, individuality, the factor that could lead someone to oppose the program, will be corrected. This individuality is represented by the family bond. Before Robocop enters the OCP office, Dick Jones and the elderly man discuss releasing the ED-209 series onto Detroit's street. Suddenly, the same door that ED entered through in the beginning of the film is opened, revealing its direct competitor, Robocop. And once again, we witness the threat with a familiar gun and the subsequent brutal death. This time, however, everything goes smoothly, without any technical malfunctions. By killing Dick, Murphy not only took his revenge, but also allowed the old man to approve the Robocop project instead of the ED one. The last time, the old man scolded the vice president like a naughty child. This time, Murphy takes his place and receives prize. He regains what seemed lost, his family.
Nice shooting, son. What's your name?
From here, everything is sadly predetermined. Once Robocop leaves the office, he will join the reformed OCP police force and continue to carry out his duties. Murphy remains simply himself, a good cop, obedient, brave, and the kind of man he always wanted to be in the eyes of his son, the terror of the criminal world. There are only 2 months left until the construction of Delta City. These 2 months will be filled with events. Thanks to Dick's death, Detroit's street will be filled with robots that actually work, unlike the malfunctioning ones. Crime will face a serious counterattack. If any police officer is mortally wounded, they will be fixed and immediately return to action as a cyborg with brainwashed skull. Hundreds or even thousands like Murphy will be created. OCP will likely start with his partner.
Murphy, I'm a mess.
They'll fix you. They fix everything.
The corporation will fix her, just as it will fix the decaying society as a whole. Murphy knows this and believes in OCP's sincere motives. And it's true, Robocop and his partner will continue to clean up the old Detroit side by side. If any police officer dares to disobey order and go against the company, they will be immediately destroyed by their colleagues. But despite all these, they are family, united by a common goal, which they will undoubtedly achieve. Delta City will be built, and the people living in it will be happy. And then, after some time, another city will begin to rise, and then another. And on the spire of the tallest building in each of them, the red, white and black OCP flag will be raised, which after everyone we talk about now seems incredibly familiar to us, doesn't it?